Hey, section 1.3. No, it looked kind of dark here in the corner. Well, it'll be alright. Section 1.3 Renaissance art. We're going to be looking at Renaissance art themes, characteristics, art as patronage, and future artistic developments. In this section, you probably, in whatever you've learned about the Renaissance in your 15, 16, 17 years on Earth, may be very well couched in art, and that's what we're going to look into today for the most part. We are joined here on the side by a special guest. This is Maisie. Maisie, say hi. You ready to learn about Renaissance art? Yeah? Look, she's literally jumping up and down with excitement about what is to come. So I expect you to do nothing less when discussing Renaissance art. The menu, major themes, visible artistic characteristics, the role of patrons in the creation of Renaissance art and architecture, the differences between Northern Renaissance and Italian Renaissance artwork, and then artistic trends. Yes, that's right, Maisie. Artistic trends after Renaissance art becomes popular. So where does art and creativity go after that? That's kind of what we're going to look at here in the course of this section. Now, when I talk about Renaissance themes through the art, I always like to give you acronyms when possible to help you remember things. So when we look at undercurrents in Renaissance art, if we look at a piece of Renaissance art and say these three isms or characteristics will always be present, we have to remember that Renaissance art is the shit, okay? It is the shit, the she. Now, I don't know how you're going to say it, but I'm going to say it's Renaissance art is the shit. It's something to remember. Now, what does those things stand for? S is secularism. We talked about the word secular in 1.2, secular meaning worldly. Doesn't mean that every Renaissance piece is going to be about non-religious ideas, but maybe the ideas that are floating through those pieces are in fact worldly and not religious. So it's something to keep in mind. Humanism. These paintings will be showcasing the potential and the achievements of human beings and what we can do, what we can look like. It's going to make you feel very, very much like you need to go for a run or workout or something like that in some cases. And also individualism. Individual aspects. These are all kind of connected together, but individual aspects of painters, or not painters, but subjects, individual details about the human body, the human condition that are portrayed in a very individualistic sense. So this year, remember that. Now, when we talk about characteristics of Renaissance art, we literally look at the artistic characteristics. Does that make sense, Maisie? Yeah, okay. She's excited. She's jumping again. So, in a sense, characteristics of Renaissance art, you don't see these in everyone, but again, these are kind of artistic characteristics that come up. And here's what I mean. Realism and expression. All these can relate to the shit in different ways. Realism and expression. This is a piece from Masaccio's Expulsion of Adam and Eve from the Garden. It's the biblical story of Adam and Eve. And if you just look, I mean, realism and expression, you can see human emotion coming from the subjects of Adam and Eve here, Eve especially, as they are expelled from the Garden of Eden. Of course, this story based on the biblical narrative, Genesis chapters 1 through 3, if you want to check out the background from that. Realism and expression. Medieval art, you do not see pieces with that much expression. Perspective, not from what my point of view is, but from literally the creation of art that appears to be 3D. You can see the idea of a vanishing point. If you take an art, you kind of know what that is, but this is another piece, I think by Masaccio, but don't quote me on that, that employs the idea that behind Jesus here on the cross, there is depth to the background. Greco-Roman influence, meaning that you're going to see Greco-Roman artistic characteristics throughout. Not only the subjects themselves, Greek and Roman gods, but also contrapposto, the classical pose of someone who's kind of, and you can practice this at home, where you stand up and basically say, all right, I'm going to put all my weight on one leg and kind of, hang out on that other one. I do it here, but I value your time. I'll just do that in class. So a Greco-Roman influence of not only the subjects that are painting, but also some of the artistic techniques that are used. Contrapposto, you saw that in ancient Greece, and the art that was created there. Individual detail. Here's two merchants. I can't think of the name of this painting. It's a very famous painting, a portrait. You can see the individual detail of both of these figures. Look at the hair in the back here. Also, the nose is a little weird, but I look at the hair, like the individual pearls, and then the background. If you zoomed in, you can see detail in the background. It's very unique. If you have ever looked at the Mona Lisa, you can look at the background of the Mona Lisa, and you wouldn't know unless you're looking for it. There's like a road back there, a whole landscape. So look at the sleeves right here. So individual detail in not only the way the body is presented, but also in the presentation behind. Again, medieval art's not going to spend a lot of time with those details, but Renaissance art reflecting humanism wants, the artist wants to show you, look how awesome I am, that I can paint every little back hair here. You see he has a little bed head. Needs to take a shower, get that fixed up. I know, Maisie, it's crazy, isn't it? Okay, geometric arrangement of shapes. This is kind of cool. Renaissance art, in many ways, is very natural, very order-centered, where the artist would like to present their subjects in a very defined way. This is a piece by Raphael. Ninja Turtles represent. And this is Mary, the mother of Jesus, and then baby Jesus. It's got all the roles going right here. But what the painter, Raphael, has done is presented both bodies in kind of a triangular version. I don't buy Jesus much as a triangle as I do Mary, but you will see shapes in Renaissance art portrayed very much in a geometric way, just to present order and a naturalistic way to the way painting is represented. And then you have light and shadow, and that kind of adds to the perspective element. Here is a very depressing looking woman who you can kind of get a sense of the shading that's added. There's two terms here, sfumato and chiaroscuro, that are techniques used by Renaissance artists. Particularly Da Vinci kind of comes along and does this a lot. Leonardo da Vinci, if you're not familiar. The use of shading to create the illusion of depth, to add perspective, and then the blurring and softening of sharp outlines, again, to give kind of the idea that when I look at, say I'm looking at, across my living room right now, and I see the couch as it goes down on the side, it goes into the shadow because the light from our skylight up here isn't reaching that. So I can see the depth of perspective. There isn't a sharp line. What the Renaissance artists are trying to do is show us the real world. They're trying to give us an idea of exactly what is going on around them, celebrating the fact that here we are in this world. Let's do our best to capture it, to improve it, to make sense of it. And art reflects that technique. So these 6 things are not, it's not like you're ever going to have to remember these for a test, but these are techniques that are used by artists to display the sheer, the secularism, the humanism, the individualism that do portray and showcase Renaissance art. So here's another example. One thing that you're going to have to do is analyze a piece of Renaissance art and call out those things. So I see the geometric arrangements of shapes. I see perspective. I see individual detail. I see, well, not really Greco-Roman here. But that's kind of what we're looking at again is, can you find those things to showcase the shift being shown in motion? Now, how does art work? Like today, if I wanted to paint something, I'd paint it and then go to the store, the art store, wherever, and I'd sell it, maybe put it on eBay or Etsy, something like that, and make some money. That's not how it works in the Renaissance era. What happens is you have princes, popes, merchants, as we're going to see with Cosimo de' Medici. We're going to have these people commission artists. That means they pay them to create pieces to increase their own prestige. So that's like, say you go over to a friend's house and you walk in, they have a 74-inch TV. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. You want to be friends with that person because you go over and play Xbox on the TV, it's going to be awesome. That's the same thing. If I walk in and I see the statue of David, I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I want to be friends with that person. And let's kind of set one point here. This goes back to the art, is that we in 2000, whatever it is, in this century, we see a painting, and sure, if you might have a reaction to it, especially if you're interested in art. But let's keep in mind that we're in the 15th century. We're in the 1400s. People can't just Google Renaissance art. I can't go down to the art museum down the street and look at things. These people who are seeing these works of art had never seen anything like this, ever. This is not a visual society. We work on what we see in the 21st century. That's how we work. But these men and women, they had never seen anything like this. So if I go over to a wealthy merchant's house and I see a work by Donatello or Michelangelo, that blows my mind. So you can't underestimate the influence that this art has, especially if you're coming out of the Middle Ages and you're celebrating these past cultures, right, Maisie? I mean, it's a good point. She's still jumping, by the way. That's got to be powerful. So that's why these, church leaders, these princes, these merchants are going to spend so much money paying these artists, Brunelleschi, Donatello, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Botticelli. They're going to be paying all of them so much money because they know the visual impact is so heavy. The art recalls the ideas of antiquity. So the big point is that art is used as a form of social and political status. You want to be around these people who are learned and cultured. And this is how an Italian Renaissance, this is how people start. This is the money behind it. Because listen, if I'm Leonardo da Vinci, I'm nothing without someone paying me to do this. I mean, it's not like I go at my side job, working at the car wash or something. That's not happening. So I've got to have somebody footing the bill for the men who are working with me, that I'm bossing around, telling them to do things, and then I'm creating the art myself. So now, one thing though to note, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, but in Northern Europe, art is not as the art plays a little bit different of a role. The art in Italy, the Italian Renaissance, is going to represent the antiquity, Greek and Roman culture. It's also going to represent religious figures, especially if the church is commissioning the art. So Jesus' mother Mary, the disciples, what have you. In Northern Europe, it's going to be secular rulers, princes, or kings, that are going to be paying these artists. And most often, the artists are going to be portraying the life of the common man. So you've got a prince or a noble who's paying an artist to paint something that's happening inside of his kingdom. And we're going to look at examples of that style right here. So Renaissance art periods, just kind of get a sense logistically where we're at. 15th century, the 1400s, we are mostly in Florence. That is really the birthplace of the Renaissance. Most our historians are going to wager. Just easy, still jumping. You still going? Okay, just a few more minutes, okay? Yeah, I know, we're excited. All right, so the projects are financed mostly by merchants. Businessmen are going to be the ones who are selling and financing art. Medici's the best example. We're going to look at really in depth in a minute. Mostly classical subjects, not always certainly, but a lot of classical Greek and Roman subjects here. So like here we have The Birth of Venus by Botticelli. And again, whenever you look at Renaissance art, think, where's the shift? Secularism, humanism, individualism. How do you see that in those characteristics that we talked about as well? The 16th century, we kind of moved the Renaissance to Rome a little bit. And in Rome, the big thing to know is that's where the Catholic Church is. So they're going to be financing a lot of the art. You're going to see mostly religious subjects as that century goes along, especially early on in the 16th century or the 1500s. That's where Da Vinci, or Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo are going to be very, very significant. This is also known as the High Renaissance. So that's kind of a vocabulary term, a High Renaissance. Good way to remember that. The High Renaissance, doing religious subjects. If you think of heaven, conceive of heaven of being up, the High Renaissance religious ideas are there. So, Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci is a good example of that. Now, the artistic differences. Again, here we are with an Italian Renaissance piece. I believe this is none other Raphael, the Madonna, or the Mary, Mother of Christ. If you see that term Madonna, it's talking about not the pop singer, although it could be. but it's also talking about the mother of Christ. And this is the baby Jesus here, and what I would assume to be his cousin John the Baptist. Now, this is Northern Renaissance art. It's very different, right? Because look at here, we got Jesus, we got Mary, but now it's similar artistic style, but now we're talking about peasant dance. Bruegel, I believe a Flemish or Dutch artist who is showing how the common man lives, and he did like several of these. He does Peasant Wedding and several others. So just see how artistic characteristics, a little bit different, but certainly the subjects are different because the people paying for the art have different missions. Right here is likely church commission to help promote religious ideas, certainly to glorify Mary, Mother of Christ, and Christ the baby. Here is likely a secular prince promoting the village and kingdom and kind of the activities that happen there. So certainly something to look at. I always love this painting too because we have two midgets here. They certainly look like little people. So, oh, I'm sorry, little person, not a midget, my bad. It's going to be PC. Here is the peasant wedding we're talking about. So very much looks like a meal. So we're going to look at these certainly more in depth. Now, post-Renaissance. One thing that we're going to look at, certainly with the Renaissance, is that, in art, is that artistic styles don't last forever. Because eventually, the people who drive the trend and drive the period become so good, you can't, like, get better than them. So you got to do something different. So we're going to see art kind of morph and change a little bit as the 16th century goes along. It continues to be used, though, to promote the stature and power of the monarchs, city-states, the church. It's not used for personal interpretation. It's not used for personal enjoyment. It's done with a message. It's propaganda. That's what it is in many ways. You have a trend called Mannerism, which is very popular in Italy and Spain. Late 16th century is going to start to distort the body to prevent or present kind of reality as a little bit of a different way. As you see, kind of the bodies are a little bit darker color. The bodies are a little bit more slanted. So this is done by a man named El Greco, otherwise known as the Greek. I think it was Spanish, but don't quote me on that. So Mannerism is a trend that comes. And then we're going to talk about another period a lot here in the fall. It's called the Baroque. And you're going to see it more in the 17th century. But this is going to be art that employs emotion and drama to showcase wealth and prestige. But it's also going to be done for several other reasons we'll talk about later. But certainly know that Renaissance art in the Share, that does not last forever. New trends and new methods come up. So that's generally what we got here for Renaissance art. The big things again with the menu, let me go back here and kind of go over it again. Major themes and visible artistic characteristics. The role of the patron. The patron is the person or the body that is paying for that Renaissance art and architecture. The differences between the Northern Renaissance and Italian Renaissance artwork, and then those two trends after. This is something, obviously, that is of interest to some people, and some people, they could care less about art. But what you always need to know about art is that it reflects what time period it's in. So we can get so many clues by knowing, hey, this art period, what's going on in history at that time. We can link those things together. You can do that even in the modern day, and it really helps you see the big picture of history. So that's 1.3. Maisie, say goodbye for now. Say bye. Yeah? We're still working on our words, so we'll get back to you on that. That's section 1.3. We'll shut the book on that. 1.4 comes soon. Where's my stop button?